I'm not posting this to be dramatic. I'm posting it because I don't trust my memory anymore, and I need there to be a record that exists outside of my head. If you recognize any part of what I'm about to describe, if you've been dealing with the same sounds, the same quiet pressure, the same sense that something is being adjusted around you, you need to stop reading and leave wherever you are. I waited too long. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that there had to be a reasonable explanation. That's how this thing works. It gives you time. It lets you talk yourself out of fear until fear stops being useful. Something irreversible happened in that house. I can feel it in my body even now, like a joint that never healed correctly. I don't think I'm the same person who moved in. I don't think I'm fully in control of when this ends. I don't know how much time I have left to explain this before it tightens again. I took the job because it was quiet. That was the selling point. Quiet town, quiet property, minimal oversight. I was 32, burned out from city life, and desperate for something that didn't involve sirens, or shared walls, or neighbors who treated midnight like a suggestion. The listing was for a caretaker position at a private estate in western Massachusetts. Old money, seasonal use, mostly empty. They needed someone to live on site through the fall and winter. Basic maintenance, security, reporting. The interview was a phone call that lasted less than 10 minutes. The man on the line spoke carefully, like someone used to being obeyed. He never raised his voice, never joked. When I asked why the previous caretaker left, there was a pause. Personal reasons, he said. You'll have autonomy. We value discretion. That should have been my first warning. The house sat on a long stretch of wooded land, miles from the nearest town. Gravel drive. Iron gate that opened slowly, whining like it hadn't been used in years. The building itself wasn't a mansion in the way people imagine. No turrets, no drama, just an old, well-kept colonial with too many rooms and ceilings that creaked under their own weight. The air smelled like oil, dust, and old wood. Clean, but not fresh. I unpacked slowly, took inventory, learned the rhythms of the place. The boiler clicked every 40 minutes. The floor outside the study dipped slightly near the window. At night, the house settled with a series of soft, deliberate pops, like someone cracking knuckles, one finger at a time. Normal stuff. Old house stuff. That's what I told myself. The first thing that didn't fit was the door. There was a small room off the west hallway that didn't appear on the floor plan. No label, no mention. Just a narrow, solid wood door with a simple metal handle and no keyhole. It was always closed. I noticed it on my second day and assumed I'd missed it before. Big house, easy to overlook things. I tried the handle. Locked. I emailed my contact, asked what it was. His response came hours later. Please don't open that door. No explanation. No context. I didn't push it. That's another mistake I keep replaying. The weeks passed quietly. Too quietly. I settled into routine. Coffee at the same time. Walk the perimeter twice a day. Log temperatures. Check the generator. Read at night. Sleep came easily at first. The kind of deep, dreamless sleep you only get when there's nothing demanding your attention. Then the sounds started changing. Not louder, not dramatic, just wrong. I'd hear footsteps where there shouldn't be any. Not pacing, not walking, just a single step. One creak, then nothing. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear the soft click of metal somewhere deep in the walls. Like a tool being adjusted, a screw turning. I told myself it was pipes, expansion, contraction, cold weather. I started keeping notes anyway. dates, times, locations. That helped for a while. Made me feel like I was managing something instead of being managed. The door began to bother me. Not because it did anything, but because it didn't. No dust ever gathered at its base. No draft. No sound behind it. When I walked past, I had the strangest sensation that I was slightly out of alignment. Like my balance shifted just enough to notice. Once, I stood there with my hand on the handle for a full minute, just listening. Nothing. That night, I dreamed of hands turning something small and precise just out of sight. Tightening. Pausing. Tightening again. I woke up with my jaw clenched so hard, it hurt to open my mouth. The first real escalation happened in early November. I woke up to the sound of my name. Not shouted, not whispered, spoken normally, from the hallway. I sat up, heart racing, listening for a follow-up. Footsteps, a door opening, nothing. I checked the security monitors. No movement, no alerts. The house was exactly as it should have been, except when I rewound the footage from that timestamp. There was a gap, 37 seconds of missing video. No static, no glitch, just a jump forward. That was when the fear started to settle in. Not panic, not yet. Doubt. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every creak felt deliberate. Every silence felt crowded. I'd lie awake, listening to the house breathe, counting the seconds between the boiler clicks, waiting for the moment something changed. Sometimes I'd hear the turning again, a slow, controlled motion, like a screwdriver finding resistance. Once I got up and followed the sound. It led me back to the west hallway, to the door. I stood there shaking, ear pressed to the wood. There was a faint vibration under my palm. Then it stopped. I started losing time. I'd sit down to write an email and look up an hour later with no memory of typing. I'd find myself standing in rooms I didn't remember entering. Once, I woke up in a chair downstairs with the lights on and my boots still on my feet. My notes became harder to read. The handwriting looked like mine, but the spacing was off, the pressure uneven, as if my hand had been guided. One morning I found a new line added to the page. Adjustment in progress. Do not interfere. I don't remember writing it. I don't think I did. I tried to leave. That thought came suddenly, and with more clarity than anything else had in weeks. I packed a bag and headed for the gate before I could talk myself out of it. The car wouldn't start. No warning lights, no sounds, just dead. I went back inside to call for help and found my phone drained to 0%. Same with my backup. That's when I heard it clearly for the first time. The screw turning, slow, intentional, closer than ever before. I didn't run. I don't know why. Every instinct said to get as far from that hallway as possible, but my body felt heavy, like the house had shifted its weight onto me. I stood there listening, counting each slow turn of whatever was being tightened behind that door. I told myself it was mechanical, something structural, a valve, a brace settling. But the sound responded to me. When I took a step back, it paused. When I moved forward again, it resumed one precise quarter turn at a time. That was the moment I understood this wasn't just happening around me. It was reacting to me. I backed away and locked myself in the bedroom. I pushed the dresser in front of the door like that would help. I sat on the bed until dawn, staring at the wall, listening to the house make adjustments I couldn't see. Morning didn't bring relief. It never does in stories like this. And it didn't here either. The daylight felt thin, strained, like it had to work to get inside. I checked my phone again. Still dead. No signal on the landline. The generator was running, but something about its hum sounded off. Too steady, too controlled. I tried the car again. Nothing. I walked the perimeter, looking for anyone. Any sign of life beyond the trees. No traffic. No hikers. No planes overhead. Just the crunch of leaves under my boots and the constant sense that I was being measured. When I came back inside, the west hallway smelled different. Hot metal. Old grease. And something else underneath it. Something organic. I stood at the far end of the hall and stared at the door. I don't know how long I stood there before my hand reached for the handle. I remember thinking very calmly that I needed to see what was being changed before it finished. The handle was warm. That alone almost made me stop. I turned it anyway. The door opened easily, like it had been waiting. The room beyond was small. Smaller than it should have been, given the layout of the house. Concrete walls, no windows, a single overhead light buzzing faintly. And in the center of the room, bolted to the floor, was a steel frame. Not a machine in the way you'd expect. No screens, no blinking lights, just a heavy, industrial-looking structure, with multiple threaded rods extending from it at odd angles. Each rod ended in a flat metal plate, worn smooth from repeated contact. The turning sound came from one of them. A motor, barely larger than my fist, was mounted near the base. It was connected to a long screw that extended upward, disappearing into a ceiling panel that didn't match the rest of the room. As I watched, it turned another fraction. The vibration traveled up through the screw and into the house. I felt it in my teeth. There were markings on the floor around the frame. Scuffs, old stains, handwritten measurements etched directly into the concrete. Heights, widths, distances, human proportions. My name was scratched into the floor near the base. I don't remember screaming, but my throat burned afterward. Behind me, the door closed. Panic finally hit. Pure animal panic. My vision narrowed. My hands went numb. I slammed my fists against the door until my knuckles split, but it didn't move. The handle didn't budge. The motor stopped. The silence was unbearable. Then a voice spoke from the ceiling. Not loud, not echoing. Right above me. "You're almost aligned," it said. I slid down the wall, gasping. "What is this?" I shouted. "What are you doing to me?" A pause. Then, correcting tolerances. The motor started again. This time, something else moved. The ceiling panel shifted, just enough for me to see what the screw was connected to. Not a beam. A brace. Pressed against something that wasn't part of the house. Pressed against me. Pain exploded through my spine. Not sharp. Pressure. Like my bones were being nudged, coaxed into a new position. My vision went white. I couldn't breathe. I felt something in my chest shift and lock. The motor stopped. I collapsed forward, retching. Nothing came up except bile and blood. When I looked down, my hands were shaking in a way I didn't recognize. The joints looked wrong, subtly, enough to notice. The door opened. I didn't turn around. "You shouldn't have interfered," the voice said gently. "Now the process will take longer." I was dragged out of the room. I don't remember my feet touching the floor. I remember the smell of oil and iron. I remember being laid on my bed like I weighed nothing. I remember the door closing again. I woke up sometime later, I don't know how much later. The clocks were all wrong. Every one of them showed a different time. My body hurt in ways I couldn't map. Not injury pain, structural pain, like soreness after something had been forced into place. I stood up and nearly fell over. My balance was off. The room felt slightly tilted. like the horizon had shifted a few degrees. When I walked past the mirror, I stopped. My reflection lagged behind me by a fraction of a second. I raised my hand. It followed, but slower than it should have. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every few hours the turning would start again. Sometimes loud, sometimes barely audible. Each time, I felt a corresponding pressure inside me, a tightening, a correction. I tried to destroy the machine. I went back to the room with a hammer from the tool shed. The door opened for me without resistance. The moment I raised the hammer, my arm locked. Not froze, locked. Muscles clenched hard enough to hurt. The hammer dropped from my fingers. "You're causing instability," the voice said, closer now. "Please remain still." I wasn't in control of my body. That realization was worse than the pain. I don't know how many adjustments happened after that. I stopped keeping count when I noticed my thoughts changing. Not drastically, just efficiency. Fear became harder to access. Panic dulled. Things that should have mattered didn't hold the same weight. I caught myself standing in the west hallway one morning, waiting for the sound to begin. When it did, relief washed over me. That terrified me more than anything else so far. I'm writing this now because something changed again. The adjustments stopped yesterday. The house is quiet. Too quiet. The door to the room is open, and the machine is off. Cold. Still. There's a note on my desk, in my handwriting. Final alignment pending. External integration required. I don't know what that means yet, but I can feel something loosening instead of tightening, a pressure easing. Like whatever was bracing me is preparing to release. If you're reading this and you're considering a job that sounds too quiet, too easy, don't take it. If you're in a place where things seem to be subtly correcting themselves around you, leave. And if you ever hear something turning slowly, patiently, like it's fine-tuning the space you occupy, it's not the house being fixed. It's you. I didn't leave after that. I want to be clear about that before you start judging my choices. I didn't freeze. I didn't forget. I didn't suddenly decide it wasn't serious. I stayed because I physically could not make myself go. That realization came slowly, in pieces, which made it worse. I tried to walk past the front door and felt a resistance that had nothing to do with fear. My legs moved. My body leaned forward. But the space between me and the door stretched, subtly. Like the house had added distance without changing dimensions. After a few seconds, I found myself standing exactly where I'd started, heart pounding, unsure how I'd gotten turned around. I tried again. Same result. No panic yet, just confusion, a creeping understanding that the rules had shifted. I checked the windows. They opened. The air outside smelled like wet leaves and cold soil. Freedom was right there. I climbed halfway out the living room window before a wave of dizziness dropped me to my knees. My vision tunneled. The world tilted. I wasn't being blocked. I was being corrected. The moment I retreated back inside, the dizziness faded. That's when it fully clicked. The house wasn't keeping me in. It was keeping me aligned. Pause. The voice didn't speak again for a while after that. Days, maybe. Time had become unreliable. My sleep cycle dissolved. I'd drift in and out of shallow rest. Never fully unconscious. Always aware of the house around me. I could feel its weight, its tension. Like a muscle held tight, waiting. My body continued to change. Not visibly. That would have been easier to explain. Harder to deny, sure, but easier to understand. Instead, it was internal, mechanical. I could feel joints seating more snugly than before. My posture adjusted itself when I wasn't paying attention. My breathing slowed, deepened, until I found myself going minutes at a time without inhaling and only noticing because it felt efficient. Food tasted dull. Hunger faded. Thirst became optional. Emotion followed. Fear still existed, but it felt distant, like a memory I could examine instead of something I experienced. I'd think, I should be scared right now and feel nothing. That scared me more than the machine ever did. The first moment of true panic came when I found myself in the west hallway again, without remembering how I got there. The door to the adjustment room was open. The machine was active, and I was standing exactly where the markings on the floor said I should. My feet were positioned on two faint outlines scratched into the concrete. My shoulders aligned with a vertical guideline. My head tilted back at precisely the angle noted beside it. I hadn't chosen that position. I tried to move. My muscles trembled, resisted, then slowly relaxed back into place. The motor turned. Pain flared through my ribs as something shifted internally. I gasped, but the sound came out wrong, too controlled, like my lungs were being rationed. No, I said, or tried to. The word felt unnecessary as soon as it left my mouth. "You're reacting again," the voice said, closer than it had ever been. Not from the ceiling this time, from behind me. I could feel its presence without turning around. Not breath, not heat, just a pressure in the space I occupied. "I didn't agree to this," I said. There was a pause. "Agreement was never a parameter," it replied. That was when panic finally overwhelmed whatever dampening had been applied to my fear. My heart hammered. My vision blurred. I fought against my own body, teeth clenched, every nerve screaming to break free. The machine stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pressure released, all at once. I collapsed forward, choking, muscles spasming as control rushed back into me, unevenly. I crawled away from the frame, sobbing, unable to stand, my body no longer trusting itself to function without instruction. Behind me, something stepped closer. "You weren't ready," the voice said. Not angry, almost disappointed. External integration requires acceptance. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I don't know how I knew it was a hand. I never saw it. But the grip was unmistakable, firm, exact. "Rest," it said. The lights went out. The paralyzing dread came later. I woke up in my bed again, just like before, but this time something was undeniably different. I could feel the house. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically. Every beam, every pipe, every wire. They registered in my awareness the way your own bones do, if you focus on them long enough. I knew where the pressure points were, where tension collected, where things were slightly out of place. And more terrifying than that, I knew how to fix them. That knowledge didn't feel learned. It felt remembered. I spent the day wandering the house in silence, touching walls, floors, door frames. Every time I encountered something misaligned, my fingers twitched with the urge to correct it, tighten it, adjust it. I found a screwdriver on the workbench without remembering picking it up. When the voice spoke again, I didn't jump. "You're stabilizing," it said. "What are you?" I asked, quietly. A pause. "I am the process," it replied. "And now, so are you." That was the moment I realized I wasn't the subject anymore. I was becoming part of the mechanism. The climax came that night. Not with noise, not with violence, with stillness. I woke up standing in the adjustment room. The machine was fully active, every rod turning in slow synchronization. The vibration filled the space, resonating through my body in a way that felt almost familiar. The ceiling panel was open. Above it was no longer just a brace. It was a continuation. A vast, unseen structure integrated into the house itself. Screws, beams, supports, an architecture designed not for people, but for alignment. For what? I whispered. For occupancy, the voice said. The floor markings had changed. They were larger now. I understood immediately what that meant. Something else was coming, and I was being prepared to receive it. Panic surged, but it was too late. My body moved on its own, stepping into position, adjusting itself with practiced efficiency. The machine accelerated. Pain flared and faded as my internal structure shifted one final time. Something clicked into place inside me. The pressure vanished. The house exhaled, and I knew, without question, that I was ready. That's when control fully left me. I'm writing this now from the study, hands shaking just enough to type. I don't know how long I'll be able to maintain this window of resistance. The house is quiet again, but it's a waiting quiet, a holding breath. I can feel the front door now, not as an exit, as a component. I understand what my role is supposed to be. I understand why the last caretaker left for personal reasons. They didn't leave. They were replaced. If you ever find yourself in a place that seems to adjust to your presence, where discomfort fades the longer you stay, where resistance feels inefficient, you need to understand something. It's not accommodating you, it's calibrating you. I'm telling you this because I still remember what fear felt like, and I don't know how long that will last. The turning has started again. This time, it's not behind a door. It's inside me.